Welcome back to part 2 of My Twin Sister Stole the Alpha King's Mark, but I'm the one he actually wants. The false mark has shattered. Your sister's throat is scarred and empty. The pack is watching, divided, whispering, waiting for the moon to decide. And the Alpha King, tall, scarred, golden-eyed, the man who once marked her in a lie, now stands in front of everyone, hand extended to you. He speaks your name like a vow, not as duty, not as fate, as the only truth he's ever known. He chooses you, publicly, irrevocably, while your twin stands frozen, her perfect mask cracking, tears falling for real this time. But here's the part that will keep you glued until the very last word. Chapter 1. The Scream That Broke the Lie. The reckoning had begun, but we weren't ready yet. Seraphina's scream sliced through the stone walls like a blade dragged across ice. I was still tangled in the sheets that smelled of Ronan, cedar, storm, and the faint salt of our tears, when the sound yanked me upright. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard I tasted metal. The false mark had shattered. I felt it in my bones, in the true bond that had never stopped calling my name. I threw on my robe with shaking hands and rushed to the balcony door. Below, torches flared to life across the courtyard. Wolves spilled from every corridor, voices rising in a confused roar. "The Luna! The mark! Something's wrong!" My bare feet hit the cold stone stairs before I could think. 2 guards at the tower door stepped aside the moment they saw me, eyes wide with uncertainty. They knew. Everyone knew something had fractured, but no one knew what it meant. Then he was there. Ronan took the stairs 3 at a time, cloak flying behind him like dark wings. The moment he reached me, he pulled me against his chest, one hand cradling the back of my head, the other pressed flat to my lower back as if he could shield me from the entire world. I felt it break from the study. He breathed into my hair. The bond. It snapped like a chain. And all I could think was you. Are you safe? I nodded against his heartbeat, but my voice came out small. She screamed your name, like I stole something from her. His arms tightened. You stole nothing. She took what was never hers. We descended together, his fingers laced through mine in plain sight. No more hiding. The great hall doors stood open, golden light spilling onto the frost-covered stones. The pack had gathered in a tight, breathless circle. At its center, Seraphina knelt on the marble floor in her white silk nightgown, one hand clutching her throat where the mark had been. There was nothing left. Only 2 faint, angry red lines, like a wound that had never truly healed, stood out against her pale skin. No silver threads, no glow, just raw, empty skin. She lifted her head the moment she saw us. Tears streamed down her face, perfect and glittering in the torchlight. "Ronan, my love, it hurts. She did this. She's killing me from the inside," the pack murmured. Some stepped closer to her. Others looked at me, at us, with wide, uncertain eyes. Ronan didn't let go of my hand. He walked me straight into the circle, stopping only when we stood directly in front of my sister. The air felt thick, charged, every breath heavy with the scent of pine smoke and fear. "I felt the bite," he said, voice low but carrying to every corner of the hall. "I felt the moment my fangs broke skin. I was never confused about her." Ronan's thumb stroked the back of my hand, slow and deliberate. "The goddess doesn't lie. The bond doesn't lie, only you did." I felt the shift in the room, the quiet intake of breath, the way heads tilted, the way the elders exchanged uneasy glances. For the first time, the pack saw the truth flickering in Ronan's golden eyes when he looked at me. Not pity, not duty, pure, fierce recognition. Seraphina rose slowly, graceful even in ruin. "Then why did you mark me? Why did you let the ritual complete?" "You could have stopped it, because I was trying to protect the pack from chaos," he answered, every word measured, honest. "But I will not protect a lie any longer." He turned to me, right there in front of everyone. The torchlight painted his face in warm gold and deep shadow. His free hand rose, cupped my cheek with heartbreaking gentleness. "Elara Voss," he said, voice dropping to that velvet rumble that always made my knees weak. "You are the only woman my soul has ever chosen. Not because of stars or rituals, because you see me. because you question everything and still choose kindness. Because when you speak of free will, I remember I am more than a crown. Tears blurred my vision, the same tears I had cried alone for years while my sister took and took and took. I love you, he whispered so softly only I could hear, and I am done pretending otherwise. He leaned in, forehead resting against mine for one stolen heartbeat. The pack watched in stunned silence. No one moved. No one dared breathe. Then Seraphina's voice cracked through the moment like a whip. If she is your true mate, she said, voice trembling with perfect heartbreak, then why am I still standing here? Why does the pain still burn? She swayed. 2 attendants caught her. The elders stepped forward, faces grave. Your Majesty, the eldest said carefully, the bond must be examined, formally, before the full moon in 3 nights. The pack needs certainty. Ronan's jaw tightened, but he nodded once. 3 nights, no longer. He turned back to me, eyes burning with everything we still couldn't say aloud. His fingers brushed a tear from my cheek, then he pressed the softest kiss to my temple, right there, in front of the entire hall. The simple touch sent warmth flooding through me, chasing away the cold dread for one perfect second. But as the pack began to disperse in uneasy clusters, Seraphina caught my gaze across the fading torchlight. Her tears had dried. The pain on her face had smoothed into something cold and calculating. She mouthed 4 silent words again, slower this time so I would never forget them. Watch me keep him anyway. Ronan's hand stayed laced with mine as we walked back toward the royal wing, but my stomach twisted with fresh fear. The mark was gone. The lie was cracking wide open, yet my sister still stood in the center of the hall like she owned the floor beneath her feet. 3 nights. 3 nights until the full moon would force the final choice. And I could already feel the bond inside me humming with something new, something deeper than hope, something that felt like the beginning of forever. But forever had never felt so fragile. Chapter 2, Whispers in the Library. But forever had never felt so fragile. Ronan's hand stayed laced with mine as we climbed the wide stone stairs back toward the royal wing, the echo of Seraphina's final words still ringing in my ears like a curse I couldn't outrun. The pack's murmurs followed us, some sympathetic, most uneasy. I could feel their eyes on my back weighing me, wondering if the quiet twin had finally become the villain their Luna painted so beautifully. Inside the royal chambers, the heavy doors clicked shut behind us, and the noise of the hall vanished. Only the crackle of the hearth remained, soft and golden, painting the room in warm light that should have felt safe. It didn't. I pulled away from Ronan's touch, crossing to the tall window that overlooked the moonlit gardens. My arms wrapped around myself, the thin robe suddenly too little against the chill that had nothing to do with the night air. What if they believe her again? The words slipped out before I could stop them, small and honest in the quiet. She's always been better at this, at making people see what she wants them to see. I'm just the one who reads books and asks too many questions. Ronan came up behind me, not touching, but close enough that I felt his warmth like a promise. Then we give them something they can't unsee. He took my hand again and led me through the hidden passage that connected the royal wing to the East Library, the same place where he had first listened to me read my own words back to him. The room was dark, except for a single lantern glowing on the wide window seat. Books lined every wall like silent witnesses. The air smelled of old leather and fresh ink, the scent that had always felt like home. We settled on the cushioned seat, my back against his chest, his arms circling my waist as if he could hold the doubts at bay. For a long moment, we simply breathed together, the bond humming softly between us like a second heartbeat. Tell me what you're afraid of, he murmured against my hair, voice low and steady. I closed my eyes. That 3 nights isn't enough. That she'll twist every memory, every letter I ever wrote, until the pack forgets the woman who stood in lavender silk and spoke of choice, and only remembers the sister who smiled while stealing everything. His fingers traced slow circles on my stomach through the thin fabric of my robe. The touch was gentle, almost reverent, but it sent warmth blooming low in my belly. Then let's remember together, he said. Free will isn't a weakness, Elara. Pack law says the mark binds, but the old scrolls, the ones you quoted in your letters, say the goddess honors truth spoken aloud. We have 3 nights to speak it. Loud enough for every wolf to hear. I turned in his arms until I faced him, knees on either side of his hips. Moonlight poured through the tall window behind me, silvering his golden eyes. He looked at me like I was the only star left in his sky. "You make me believe I can be more than the shadow," I whispered. "You were never the shadow," he answered, voice rough with emotion. "You were the light I was waiting to see clearly." The kiss started slow, soft press of lips, tasting of salt and hope. Then it deepened. His hand slid beneath the edge of my robe, palm warm against my bare skin, tracing the curve of my waist, then lower to rest over my stomach. The touch felt different tonight. Protective. Full of quiet wonder. "I already imagine it," he breathed between kisses, thumb stroking slow circles just below my navel. "You, round with our child. Me, on my knees every night, kissing this exact spot and promising our little one they will never have to choose between love and duty." Heat pooled where his hand rested. A soft sound escaped me, half sob, half moan. His mouth found my throat, open and lingering, teeth grazing lightly over the place his real mark would soon rest. My fingers threaded into his hair, holding him closer as the kiss turned heated, urgent, full of everything we had been forced to hide. We stayed like that for long, stolen minutes, bodies pressed close on the window seat, his hand never leaving my stomach, as if he could already feel the future growing there. The intellectual fire of our conversation melted into something deeper, sweeter, more desperate. Every touch said, "I choose you." Every breath said, "We are running out of time." A soft knock broke the spell. One of the younger wolves, Elara, the archivist who had once helped me research Bond philosophy, stood in the doorway, eyes bright with nervous courage. "Lady Elara," she said quietly. "A few of us. We remember your letters, the ones about choice. We believe you. We'll stand with you at the full moon if you'll let us." The first crack of real support. My throat tightened with grateful tears. Ronan nodded to her, pride shining in his eyes. "Thank you. Tell the others the truth is coming." Elara slipped away, leaving us in the lantern glow once more. For one perfect heartbeat, hope felt stronger than fear. Then the morning bells tolled. We returned to the great hall for the first formal inquiry session, hands still joined. The elders sat in their carved chairs, faces grave. Seraphina stood beside them in fresh white silk, the red scars on her throat artfully displayed like evidence. She didn't look at me. She looked at the scroll in her hands. "This was found in the old archives last night," she said, voice trembling with perfect sorrow. "A letter in Elara's handwriting. It speaks of dark herbs that blur scent and mind, herbs that could make a king whisper the wrong name." My blood turned to ice. The scroll was passed to the elders. I recognized the handwriting, mine, but the words were twisted, forged. I had never written about herbs. Never. Ronan's grip on my hand tightened. The eldest elder cleared his throat. "Until the full moon, for the safety of the pack and the stability of the crown, Lady Elara must be isolated. No visitors. No contact with the king. The bond must be tested without interference." Whispers exploded across the hall. Seraphina's eyes finally met mine, cold, victorious, satisfied. Ronan stepped forward, voice thunder wrapped in velvet. "You will not separate me from my true mate." But the elders had already spoken. 2 guards moved toward me, apologetic but firm. Ronan pulled me close one last time, forehead against mine, voice a fierce whisper only I could hear. 3 nights, hold on to us, I will find a way." His lips brushed mine in the briefest, most desperate kiss. Then they led me away, down the long corridor to the isolated West Tower chamber. The door closed with a heavy final sound. I stood alone in the small room, heart hammering, the ghost of Ronan's hand still warm on my stomach. Outside, I heard Seraphina's soft laugh echo down the hall. The forged letter had done its work. Isolation had begun, and the full moon was only 3 nights away. Chapter 3. Threads of Memory. The isolation had begun, and the full moon was only 3 nights away. The West Tower chamber felt smaller with every hour. Stone walls pressed in, the single narrow window offering only a sliver of gray sky and distant pines. No books, no visitors, just the faint echo of my own breathing and the bond inside my chest that refused to stay quiet. It tugged toward Ronan like an invisible thread pulled taut, humming with longing so sharp it bordered on pain. I paced the small circle of rug until my feet ached, replaying every word from the hall. The forged letter, the elder's ruling, Seraphina's cold smile. The way Ronan's forehead had rested against mine for that final heartbeat, his whisper burning into my skin. Hold on to us. A soft knock broke the silence. The door opened just enough for a guard to step aside. Seraphina entered alone, white silk gown whispering against the stone, the red scars on her throat stark in the lantern light. The guard closed the door behind her with a heavy click, leaving us truly alone for the first time since the mark had shattered. She didn't speak at first. She simply stood there, studying me with eyes that had once been my mirror, the same green, the same dark waves. Yet everything between us felt shattered beyond repair. "You look smaller in here," she said quietly. No triumph in her voice this time, just something tired and strangely honest. "I thought you'd never fight back, Elara." "Not really. You've always been the one who steps aside, who forgives, who lets me shine." The words landed like stones in still water. I felt the old ache rise, the years of shrinking, of smiling through every stolen moment. But this time I didn't swallow it. "You didn't just take the spotlight," I answered, voice steady even as my hands trembled. "You took the one thing that was never yours to touch. My future, my heart, my choice. And you smiled while you did it." Seraphina's gaze dropped to the scars on her throat. For a moment, the mask slipped. I thought if I had the mark, I could finally be enough. For the pack. For him. For once, not the twin who had to scheme to be seen. Her voice cracked, raw and real in a way I hadn't heard since we were children sharing secrets under the same blanket. "I didn't think you'd ever stand up and say mine. I didn't think you had it in you." The confession hung between us, heavy with the weight of every small theft, every quiet erasure, every time blood had felt thinner than ambition. Betrayal tasted different now, not just sharp, but deeply, achingly sad. My own sister, the person who once knew every dream I whispered in the dark, had looked at my happiness and decided it was something to take rather than protect. "I'm not the one who needs to be enough anymore," I said softly. "You took that from me. But Ronan, he sees me, not as the quiet twin, not as your shadow, as me. And that truth is louder than any mark you stole." Tears slipped down her cheeks, real ones this time, not the perfect glittering performance from the hall. She didn't wipe them away. "Then why does it still hurt?" she whispered. "Why does the empty place on my throat burn? Every time he looks at you like, you're his whole world?" Before I could answer, the door opened again. The guard stepped in, voice respectful but firm. "Time's up, Luna Seraphina." She gave me one last long look, part regret, part defiance, then turned and left. The door clicked shut, sealing me in silence once more. I sank onto the narrow bed, knees drawn to my chest, letting the tears come. The confrontation hadn't brought victory or closure. It had only laid bare the wound we both carried. Two sisters who had once shared everything, now torn apart by the same love neither of us knew how to share. Hours blurred. Lantern light grew low. Then another knock, different this time. The guard's voice carried a note of quiet sympathy. "You have a visitor. Brief, King's orders." Ronan stepped inside the moment the door opened. Cloak drawn close, golden eyes finding mine instantly. The guard closed the door but remained just outside, giving us the fragile illusion of privacy. He crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to one knee in front of me, taking both my hands in his. No grand gestures. No rushed touches. Just the steady warmth of his palms against mine and the depth of emotion in his gaze that made the air feel too thin to breathe. "I couldn't stay away," he said, voice rough with the strain of the last hours. "Not when I know you're in here carrying every doubt alone." I squeezed his fingers, the simple contact sending a rush of warmth through the aching emptiness inside me. They're testing the bond by keeping us apart. But the bond, it only grows louder. He leaned closer, forehead nearly touching mine, eyes never leaving my face. The space between us crackled with everything, unsaid, longing so fierce it felt like a living thing. "I spent my childhood watching my father choose the crown over everything else," he murmured. "Nights when the halls felt Endless and cold because no one saw the boy beneath the future king. I swore I would never be that alone again. Then you walked into the ballroom and asked me about choice. And for the first time, I understood what it meant to be truly seen. Not as alpha, not as duty. As Ronan. The words wrapped around my heart like the gentlest embrace, spicy with the depth of his vulnerability, the raw honesty that made every second of separation feel unbearable. I could feel the pull of him in every breath, the way his voice trembled with the same ache I carried. "You make me believe I'm worth choosing," I whispered back, voice thick with emotion. "Even when the whole pack is waiting for me to prove, I'm not the villain she painted." His thumb stroked slow circles over my knuckles, the tender rhythm steadying us both. "You are the only choice I will ever make with my whole soul. 3 nights, Elara. Hold on to that. When the full moon rises, I will stand in front of every wolf and speak the truth so clearly, no one can twist it again." We stayed like that, foreheads almost touching, hands clasped, breathing the same air, until the guard's gentle knock reminded us time was up. The separation felt sharper now, the longing more vivid, the love between us burning brighter because it had to survive the distance. Ronan pressed one last kiss to my knuckles, eyes shining with fierce promise. "You are my Luna, not because of any mark, because my heart chose you long before the moon ever did." Then he was gone. I sat alone again, the chamber somehow emptier and fuller at the same time. The bond hummed with new strength, carrying his words like a secret flame against the growing dark. Evening fell. The guards escorted me to the great hall for the mandatory meal, isolated at a small side table, but still required to be present so the pack could observe me. Seraphina sat at the high table, pale but composed, the red scars on her throat catching every candle flicker. The moment I stepped through the door, she clutched her throat with a sharp gasp. Her body swayed dramatically. Attendants rushed to her side. "The pain!" she cried out, voice carrying to every corner. "It returned the moment she walked in. The bond. It's punishing me for her presence." Gasps rose, heads turned. Elders exchanged uneasy glances. Seraphina's eyes found mine across the hall, calculated, tear-filled, perfectly timed. Half the pack was already murmuring her name with sympathy. And the full moon was now only 2 nights away. Chapter 4, The Quiet Fire. Half the pack was already murmuring her name with sympathy. And the full moon was now only 2 nights away. The isolation chamber felt colder after Seraphina left. Her words lingered like smoke, honest for once, yet still laced with the same quiet poison that had always made me question my own worth. I sat on the edge of the narrow bed, knees drawn up, arms wrapped around them as if I could hold myself together long enough for the next sunrise. The bond pulsed steadily in my chest, warm and insistent, carrying Ronan's promise from earlier. "You are my Luna, not because of any mark, because my heart chose you long before the moon did." Every time the memory replayed, it sent a shiver through me. Not fear, but something fiercer. A quiet, burning certainty that refused to be dimmed. Morning came gray and heavy. The guards escorted me to the elders' council chamber for the day's observation. No chains, no restraints, just watchful eyes and the unspoken rule: speak only when spoken to. The long oak table was surrounded by the 7 elders, their faces carved from years of duty and doubt. Ronan sat at the head, posture rigid, golden eyes fixed on the door the moment I entered. The instant our gazes met, the room seemed to narrow to just us. His expression didn't soften, no smile, no visible relief, but the bond flared brighter between us, a silent flare of, "I'm here. Hold on." I took the single chair placed at the far end of the table, far enough that the elders could study me like a puzzle they weren't sure they wanted to solve. The eldest cleared his throat. "Lady Elara, the pack requires clarity. The forged letter speaks of dark herbs. The Luna's pain returns in your presence. Explain." I lifted my chin, heart hammering but voice steady. "The letter is a forgery. I never wrote of herbs or deception. I wrote of choice, of free will beneath instinct, of bonds that should reflect truth, not force it." I paused, letting the words settle. Then I continued, quoting the passage I had once submitted to the council, the one Seraphina had twisted. "A true mark is not possession," I said softly. "It is recognition. 2 minds choosing each other beneath the instinct. The goddess does not punish questions. She waits for answers spoken in truth. The elders shifted. One or two exchanged glances. Ronan's eyes never left my face, pride and something deeper shining there, fierce and unguarded. I turned to the table. I have spent my life in the shadows of books and stars. I have never sought power. I have only ever asked to be seen as I am. If the bond is fracturing, it is not because I wish harm on my sister. It is because the goddess herself is revealing what was hidden. Silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then the youngest elder, a woman named Mara who had once borrowed my star charts, spoke. Your words are the same ones we read last winter. They were thoughtful, careful, not obsessive. Murmurs rippled down the table. Ronan leaned forward, voice calm but edged with steel. Elara has never hidden her mind. She has only ever offered it freely. If the pack doubts her now, it is because someone else has twisted her light into shadow. His gaze swept the elders, then returned to me. In that single look was everything unspoken. You are enough. You have always been enough. The eldest elder exhaled slowly. We will consider this. The full moon gathering will decide. Until then, observation continues. The session ended. Guards escorted me back toward the tower. But halfway down the corridor, Ronan's voice cut through the stone. Wait. The guards paused. He strode forward, stopping just short of touching me, close enough that I could smell cedar and storm on his cloak. I am proud of you, he said quietly, so only I could hear. You stood in that room and spoke your truth without apology. That is the woman I fell in love with, the one who questions everything and still chooses kindness. The one who makes me want to be better than the crown ever demanded. The words landed deep, spicy with the raw intensity of his emotion, the way his voice trembled just enough to betray how much it cost him to hold back in front of witnesses. My throat tightened with grateful tears I refused to let fall. You make me believe I can be more, I whispered back, that I don't have to shrink anymore. His fingers brushed mine, barely a touch, yet it sent warmth flooding through every vein. 2 more nights, he said. Then the moon will see what we already know. The guards cleared their throats. Ronan stepped back, but his eyes stayed locked on mine until the corridor turned. Back in the chamber, I sat by the narrow window watching the sun sink behind the pines. For the first time since the isolation began, the doubt felt smaller than the hope. The elders had listened. Some had remembered. And Ronan. He had looked at me like I was the only truth left in the world. Night fell. Dinner was brought on a tray. Simple bread, cheese, stew. I ate mechanically, mind replaying the day's small victory. Then the door opened without a knock. Seraphina stood in the threshold, alone again. Her white gown looked almost ghostly in the lantern light. The red scars on her throat stood out sharper than before. She stepped inside. The guard closed the door behind her. This time she didn't speak right away. She crossed to the window and stared out at the same pines I had been watching. I used to envy you, she said quietly. You were always the one who could sit alone with a book and feel complete. I needed eyes on me to feel alive. When Ronan looked at you that first night, I saw something I could never have. Not really. So I took it. The confession hung between us, stripped of performance. No tears, no drama. Just the naked truth of a sister who had spent her life chasing what she thought would finally make her whole. I'm sorry, she whispered. Not enough to undo it, but I'm sorry. I stood slowly. The ache in my chest shifted. Not gone, but different. Sadder, more honest. I wanted us to be sisters, I said. Not rivals, not thieves, just us. She nodded once, small and broken. Tomorrow the elders meet again. I don't know what I'll say. Then she turned and left without another word. The door closed. I sank back onto the bed, heart pounding with a strange mix of grief and fragile peace. My sister had finally admitted the wound she'd inflicted, but the scar remained. Morning arrived with urgent bells. The guards came early. The elders summon you to the great hall now. I followed them down the corridors, heart in my throat. The hall was packed, every wolf from elder to youngling. Ronan stood at the front, eyes finding mine the second I entered. He gave one small nod, steady and sure. Seraphina waited beside the elders, pale but composed. The eldest rose. We have deliberated. The forged letter has been examined. The handwriting matches Lady Elara's, but the ink is fresh, recent. Someone altered it. Murmurs erupted. Seraphina's composure cracked, just a flicker. The elder continued. The pain the Luna claims, it appears only when Lady Elara is near, yet the king reports no such pain. The bond, therefore, is not punishing. It is clarifying. Ronan stepped forward. Then let the full moon decide. Let the goddess speak plainly. The elder nodded. So it shall be. Tomorrow night, the true Luna will be chosen under the moon. The hall held its breath. Seraphina's eyes locked on mine, wide, panicked, the mask finally slipping. And in that moment, I felt the quiet fire inside me rise.
Not anger?
Not revenge. Just the fierce, burning certainty that tomorrow I would finally stand in the light I had spent my life giving away. One more night until everything changed. Chapter 5, The Heart's Proof. One more night until everything changed. The great hall emptied slowly after the elder's announcement, wolves drifting away in tight clusters, voices low and uncertain. The air still carried the echo of Seraphina's gasp, the way her hand had flown to her throat like a rehearsed cue. Yet something had shifted in the room tonight. Not victory, but the first real crack in her performance. The forged letter exposed, the pain questioned, the elders listening to me. I walked back to the West Tower flanked by guards, but my steps felt lighter. Ronan's pride in that single look, fierce, unguarded, burned brighter than any torch. For the first time in days, the isolation didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a pause before the storm broke open. The chamber door closed behind me. I crossed to the narrow window and pressed my palms to the cool stone sill, staring at the pines swaying under the rising moon. 2 nights left. 2 nights to hold the fragile hope that the pack would finally see what Ronan and I already knew. A soft knock came sooner than expected. The guard's voice carried quiet respect. A visitor, brief. King's command. The door opened and Ronan stepped inside. Alone. No cloak this time, just the simple black tunic he wore when the crown felt too heavy. His golden eyes found mine instantly, and the bond flared between us like a shared breath. He crossed the room without hurry, stopping close enough that I could feel the heat radiating from him. No words at first, just the slow rise and fall of his chest matching mine. Then he reached out, took both my hands and drew me gently to sit on the edge of the bed beside him. Our knees touched. His thumbs stroked slow circles over my knuckles, grounding us both. I couldn't wait until dawn, he said, voice low and rough with everything he'd held back in the hall. Watching you stand there today, quoting your own words, looking every elder in the eye, I felt something I've never felt before. Pride so fierce it hurt. Love so deep it scared me. My throat tightened. The emotion in his voice was spicy, raw, almost overwhelming. The kind that made every heartbeat feel too loud, too precious. You made me believe I could be more than the quiet twin, I whispered. That my voice mattered, that I didn't have to shrink so someone else could shine. He lifted one hand to his lips, pressing a lingering kiss to my palm. You have always mattered. To me, to the goddess, to anyone who listens without agenda. His eyes searched mine, golden and steady. And now, there is something else. He placed my hand gently over my lower stomach, covering it with his own. The touch was reverent, careful, full of quiet wonder. I felt it this morning, he said softly. A new warmth, a second heartbeat, faint but certain, ours. The world tilted. Tears welled before I could stop them, hot, joyful, disbelieving. Our child? He nodded, thumb brushing away the first tear that fell. Our child, growing inside you, proof that the bond was never false, that what we have is real, deeper than any mark she stole. The emotion crashed over me in waves, joy so bright it ached, fear so sharp it cut, love so fierce it steadied everything else. I pressed my forehead to his, breathing him in, letting the reality settle into my bones. A child. Our child. a future no lie could touch. We stayed like that for long minutes, hands still joined over the small, secret life between us. No rush, no words needed. Just the quiet miracle of knowing we had already created something unbreakable. "I want to be the father who listens," he murmured against my hair. "Who teaches questions instead of commands. Who shows our child that love isn't possession, it's choice, every single day." I lifted my head, meeting his gaze. "And I want to be the mother who never shrinks. Who reads star charts under moonlight and tells bedtime stories about free will. Who shows them they are loved exactly as they are." His smile was small, tender, full of everything we had fought for. "Then we will be. Together." The moment stretched, warm and golden, until the guard's gentle knock reminded us time was borrowed. Ronan pressed one last kiss to my forehead, slow, lingering, filled with promise. "Tomorrow night the moon rises. I will stand before them all and speak every truth. No more shadows, no more lies." He rose, fingers trailing down my arm until the very last second. Then he was gone. I curled on the bed, hand resting over the faint warmth low in my belly, tears slipping into the pillow. Not from sorrow, but from a joy so deep it felt almost holy. Our child. A heartbeat that answered the true bond. A future that belonged to us. Morning arrived with urgent summons. The guards came early. "The elders call an emergency gathering. Now." I followed them to the great hall. The room was packed tighter than before, every wolf present, tension thick in the air. Ronan stood at the front, posture calm but eyes blazing. Seraphina waited beside the elders, pale, composed, a new scroll in her hands. The eldest rose. "Lady Seraphina has brought new evidence, a witness who claims to have seen Lady Elara gathering herbs the night of the ritual." Murmurs erupted. Seraphina stepped forward, voice trembling with perfect heartbreak. "I beg the pack for mercy, for understanding. I never wanted this pain. I only wanted to be loved. If the bond is true to her, then let it be so. But please, do not let my suffering be in vain." She lowered her head, tears falling like rain. The hall softened, sympathetic whispers rose. Ronan's jaw tightened. I felt the quiet fire inside me flare brighter, not anger but resolve. My hand instinctively moved to my stomach, protective, certain. Tomorrow night the moon would rise. Tomorrow night the truth would be spoken. Tomorrow night everything would change. And Seraphina's final play had just begun. Chapter 6. The Moon That Chose Us. Seraphina's final play had just begun. The great hall felt smaller under the weight of tomorrow's full moon. Wolves lingered in the corridors long after the emergency gathering dissolved, their whispers weaving through the stone like threads of doubt and hope. I walked back to the West Tower with my hand resting lightly over the secret warmth in my belly. Our child, the quiet proof that no lie could erase. The bond thrummed stronger now, not just pulling toward Ronan, but cradling something new, something alive. The guards opened the chamber door. I stepped inside and froze. A small wooden box sat on the narrow table by the window, unmarked, simple, the kind of thing a servant might deliver without fanfare. My heart stuttered. I crossed the room slowly, lifted the lid. Inside lay a single folded parchment and a tiny silver vial. The parchment was in Ronan's handwriting, sharp, sure strokes that made my chest ache with recognition. "Elara, tomorrow night the moon rises. I will speak every truth. The herbs she used, the whispered name on my lips, the bond that never once turned toward her. I will choose you in front of them all, not as king, but as the man who loves you beyond duty, beyond fate. Keep this vial close. It holds a drop of my blood mixed with moon-blessed water, old ritual to strengthen the true bond in the final hours. Drink it at moonrise if you feel the pull waver. You are already carrying our future. Hold that truth tighter than any fear. I love you, always. Ronan." Tears blurred the ink. I pressed the parchment to my lips, tasting salt and cedar and him. The vial felt warm in my palm, like a heartbeat borrowed from his own. One night left. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window watching the moon climb higher, brighter, fuller. The bond sang between us, steady, fierce, alive with the promise of tomorrow. Dawn arrived pale and restless. The guards came at first light. The full moon gathering begins at dusk. Prepare. They brought a simple gown, deep indigo silk, the color of midnight sky before stars appear. No adornments, no crown, just fabric that moved like water and felt like quiet strength. As the sun sank, the guards escorted me down the long corridors to the ancient garden beyond the west wall, the same place where Ronan had first refused to let go of my hand under the oak. Tonight the garden was transformed. Torches ringed the wide stone circle, the full moon hanging low and heavy, bathing everything in silver that felt almost liquid. The pack had gathered, hundreds of wolves standing in silent rows, faces turned toward the center where the elders waited. Ronan stood at the heart of the circle, black tunic open at the throat, no cloak, no crown. Just the man. His golden eyes found me the moment I stepped into the torchlight. The bond flared so brightly I nearly stumbled. Seraphina stood to one side, white gown glowing against the night, red scars stark on her throat. She lifted her chin when she saw me, but the mask had thinned. Her eyes held something raw, almost pleading. The eldest elder raised his hands. Tonight the moon speaks. The king will declare his truth. The goddess will confirm or deny. Ronan stepped forward. The pack fell utterly silent. I marked Seraphina Voss under the blood moon, he began, voice carrying clear and steady across the garden. But in the moment my fangs broke skin, I whispered another name. Elara's. The bond tasted wrong. Hollow. Forced. I felt herbs blurring the air, scent, instinct. I let the ritual complete to avoid chaos in the pack. But I have never once felt the pull toward Seraphina. Every heartbeat, every breath, every quiet hour has called to Elara. He turned to me, eyes never wavering. She is the woman who questions the stars and still chooses kindness, who stood in front of elders and spoke her truth without apology, who carries our child, the proof that love chooses freely, not by deception. Gasps rippled through the pack. Ronan continued, voice thickening with emotion. I choose Elara Voss as my Luna. Not because the moon demands it, because my soul demands it, because she is the only future I want. He extended his hand. I walked forward, past the torches, past the elders, past Seraphina's frozen stare, until my fingers slid into his. The bond sang, bright and unbreakable. The eldest elder nodded once. Then let the goddess witness. Ronan drew me close, turning us so we faced the moon together. His other hand rose to my throat, the unmarked spot that had waited so long. His touch was gentle, reverent. Elara, he whispered, only for me. Do you choose this? Choose me? Choose us? Tears slipped down my cheeks. I choose you. Every day, every night, every heartbeat. He leaned in. His lips brushed the pulse point once. Soft, tender. Then his fangs grazed the skin. No pain, only warmth. A slow, sacred pressure. The bite came gentle, deliberate, sealing the truth into my blood. Silver threads bloomed instantly, bright, glowing, alive. The mark pulsed once, twice, then settled into perfect silver light. The pack exhaled as one. Some knelt, others wept. Whispers turned to quiet cheers. Seraphina stood motionless. Her hand rose to her own throat, empty, scarred, and for one heartbeat her mask shattered completely. Tears tracked down her face, silent and real. She looked at me, not with hate, but with something broken and final. Then she turned and walked away from the circle, white gown trailing like a ghost into the shadows. The elders raised their hands. The moon has spoken. Elara Voss is Luna. The true bond is sealed. Ronan pulled me into his arms, forehead against mine, breathing me in like I was air after drowning. Our child will be born under the next blood moon, I whispered against his lips. He smiled, small, radiant, full of everything we had fought for. Then we have time, he murmured, all the time in the world. The torches flickered, the moon watched. The pack began to disperse, some bowing, some smiling, some still wiping tears. We stood together in the silver light, hand in hand, heart in heart, knowing the story wasn't over. It was only beginning. The moon has chosen. The bond is sealed, and their forever is just starting. If you felt every tear Elara cried in silence, every stolen glance from Ronan that made your heart race, every crack in Seraphina's perfect mask that left you breathless, then you already know this story isn't just words on a page. It's the ache of being overlooked by the person who should have protected you most. It's the quiet fire of finally being chosen, really chosen, for exactly who you are. It's the moment a king drops to one knee not because fate demands it, but because his soul can't imagine another future. The mark is sealed. The moon has spoken. Elara carries their child, and the forever they've fought for is only just beginning. But what happens next? How does a quiet twin become the Luna the entire pack now reveres? What does Seraphina do when she has nothing left to steal? Will their child be born under a blood moon that changes everything again? This love story doesn't end with "I choose you." It begins there. If you're still feeling that pull in your chest, if you need to know how deep this forever goes, if you're ready to see Elara rise, Ronan protect, and the pack finally kneel to the truth, then say it with me. Give me the epilogue. Write the next chapter. More, I need more.